What does it mean to personify emotions? Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Health Break podcast. Devon Loftus joins us today to share her journey with depression and how she learned to process her emotions and learn to personify them and hold space for conflicting emotions. Hi, I'm Dr. Nafisa Sekandari, a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in anxiety-based disorders. It wasn't that long ago that I struggled with my own anxiety and had no idea how to manage it, but now I have control over my anxiety and overall mental health. I created the Mental Health Break podcast to give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to do the same. Mental illness can cost you time and money. Ignoring your symptoms will only make the problems worse. Taking time out of your busy day to dedicate to improving your mental health can lead to long-term health and wellness. In this podcast, each week you'll learn tips, tricks, and proven strategies to help you regain control of your life, all while prioritizing your mental health. If you want to improve your life, regain control of your mental health, and feel empowered, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Today's episode is brought to you by the Beginner's Guide to Managing Anxiety. Learn how to manage your anxiety with simple, proven strategies from the comfort of your own home. In this mini self-paced course, you learn how to make lifestyle changes that can guide you towards better mental and physical health. To learn more, visit transforminganxiety.com/begin. Today, I'm joined by Devon Loftus, a writer, but also somebody that struggled with her own depression, and she'll share her journey with us today. Let me briefly introduce her before I bring her on. Devon Loftus is a writer, author, speaker, and the founder of Mooncycle Bakery, a wellness-based business that focuses on the menstrual cycles and creates sweet treats and food-related products to help support women hormonally, spiritually, and emotionally. Inside and outside of her business, Devon values emotional and mental health. She holds writing workshops where she personifies big emotions to help process them and guides others in doing the same. She likes to share thoughts and experiences, particularly as a woman and a mother and a human, on social media. Devon currently lives, works, and writes from New Jersey. She's heavily influenced by her time spent living on the West Coast, holistic health, her family, and the human experience. So excited to have this conversation with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I just shared a little bit about your background, but I love the idea of a Mooncycle Bakery. So can you tell me, it's such a great concept. Can you tell me a little bit about how that came about and a little bit about the products that are offered?
Absolutely. So I think it's always a good place to start too, because it really was the founding place of where I started understanding what holistic health means to me. And when I say holistic health, I mean really understanding how the mind, body, and spirit work together. I feel like I kind of picked up caring for myself mentally, physically, and spiritually in pieces, and then this business really helped me understand how the three of them work together so well. So Mooncycle Bakery started in 2017. I was about to get married, and I had friends come together. I was living in Oakland, California at the time, and we got together for a night. And we just went to some different bars. And at the last bar, my husband and some of the other partners met us, or my fiance at the time. And he brought this homemade, delicious, amazing chocolate cake. And we all just devoured it. And it was really one of those moments where we were all very aware of, food bringing you together. And so one of our friends had tapped him on the shoulder. I was sitting next to him and said to him, I just need to tell you that this is one of the most amazing things I've ever eaten. And I don't know if it's because I'm about to get my period or not, but I almost cried. And I just felt that in my bones. And I felt like that was so relatable. And so I told her, don't worry, I'll give you a piece of this every month. And then the next morning we woke up and I remembered that conversation. And I told my husband, I think there's something here. Not only women wanting to be nutritionally supported every time that they're on their period or throughout their cycle for that matter, but really be acknowledged that the cycle is even occurring, be acknowledged about the ebbs and flows that they're feeling and experiencing, and be supported in that, and within a topic that is often stigmatized in our society. So that's how it started. It's grown so much. We actually are releasing our first cookbook will be published this fall, 2021. So we're entering into that pre-publishing excitement. I have my co-author is this really amazing nutritionist that's on our team, and some of the products that we offer now are everything from like raw chocolate cups with honey and ginger, all the way to sweet potato brownies. And we actually just had a limited edition Linzer tart. And everything is gluten-free, dairy-free, refined sugar-free. And then most of the time they're vegan, but we have some that aren't as well.
How do you decide on what ingredients to include? Are they hormonally based and focused, or are you focusing on things that just uplift the mood?
So I think both are really important. Speaking for myself, I find that when I can be in balance of eating in a way that supports my body feeling well, then my mood is usually uplifted as it is. But we focus on the hormonal aspect in the sense of we look at micronutrients that are lost throughout the different phases, and then we use whole foods to help to replenish them. So things like sweet potatoes helping to create serotonin and dopamine when we're in our luteal phase and our progesterone drops, and usually serotonin and dopamine go with it. Complex carbs can help that. So a sweet potato is one of the many things you could choose from, but they're sweet. So if you have a sugar craving, that's usually a really nice way to not only support yourself nutritionally, but also to soothe that craving. And things like cacao to help with magnesium depletion, which can help with anxiety for one thing, but also things like cramping or insomnia. So yeah, we're really looking at the whole foods, like really getting back to the basis of how whole foods can support us, and then how those pieces fit into each phase of the cycle. And that's very much what our cookbook is about. It breaks down the phases, it gives a bit of science behind it, and then the recipes are geared towards focusing on those certain micronutrients in that phase.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. I think that's we do medicate ourselves with food without even realizing it. I've just done here on the Mental Health Break podcast, we've done several episodes where we talk about the importance of diet and nutrition and balancing our moods and making us feel better. So that's why I was so intrigued by your Mooncycle Bakery. I just love that concept. You also have your own personal connection to depression. So can you tell me a little bit about your experience, and then what was that like, and how did you manage and control your symptoms?
Yeah. So again, I feel like my depression, or like I was saying before, I felt like my mental wellness and my physical wellness and my spiritual wellness kind of came to me in pieces, which I feel like really benefited me actually, because I feel like I needed to experience certain things at a certain time to really understand how they worked off one another. So when it came to my depression, I experienced that really heavily when I was a freshman in college, and there were many different reasons, but at the core of it was this feeling like I just was not enough, and I really felt like I had no worth. At that time, when I got deeper into my depression, my nutrition went. I never really used nutrition at that point. Didn't have the education at that point to understand how nutrition could help to benefit my body. And as I sunk lower into the depression, I didn't reach for things that were going to make me feel better. Again, one, because I didn't have the education, but two, I wasn't I didn't feel empowered. I think that was the biggest thing. I did not feel empowered to help myself. So I actually was like grabbing for lean cuisines and things that, like frozen meals almost daily that just didn't really benefit me, not only mentally, but physically. I mean, I never, it didn't make me feel energized. It didn't make me feel well. And then it's like I said in the beginning, it's that aspect too of like, so then I was having lean cuisines in my room, in my dorm, and I didn't go to the cafeteria because seeing people was just way too much. But then I lost that sense of that social aspect and that social connection too, which obviously is such a big part of it. And we are very much geared to be social beings, even, like me, like when I'm introverted, it's still something that we need to thrive. So it was kind of interesting to see like that downfall, like first this went out, then that went out. And it really just had me sinking lower. So for me, it actually wasn't nutrition that got me out of it, or helped to like, it helped me, empowered me to get help. It was actually It was just it was an awakening. My mom, I was having suicidal ideations, and my mom was very aware of this, and she would be scared every time I would call her. There was at one point I realized, and my aunt had actually intervened and just said, like, you're going to kill her. She is so scared that she's going to lose you. And I'm so close to my mom, and it was this really eye-opening realization to me that I didn't really care about killing myself at that point, but I did care about killing someone that was, my everything, someone who cared for me so much, and someone who I loved so deeply. So at that point was when I made the choice to go to therapy, and from there, things really, therapy and the medication I ended up going on at that point were really what helped pull me out of that depression and help me feel empowered to take my own mental health into my hands.
Wow, that's quite a story. That was that's quite a journey. And so how long ago was that as far as your diagnosis, and how long have you felt like you're pretty much, I mean, not, I think depression and anxiety, it's not like something that goes away permanently, but how long have you felt more in control of your depression and anxiety, or just depression in general?
Yeah, so I was a freshman in college, so that was about 12, 13 years ago. So I think that was really the starting point for me of understanding what my body was trying to tell me, and in that sense, what my emotions were trying to tell me. Therapy, and I started with cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's still the style of therapy that I resonate with most, because it really helped me to slow down and listen to the thoughts I was having and understand how, not only how they were impacting me, but why I was having them. And some of that was so conditioned, right? So a lot of the pain that I felt was coming from childhood, things that I had heard other people say, or that I had been conditioned to think because of someone else's pain. A lot of it I just had never questioned before. I just took it as truth. So it really started giving me the tools that I needed to, like you said, not ever like rid myself or even control my depression, but work with it. Feel like it didn't own me, but that I could understand myself. And then from there, I could not only empower myself, but have compassion for myself, which is really what I was lacking. Having this, this self-compassion and self-love. So it's been about 12 years of therapy on and off. I had eventually gone off probably only a year or so after I'd started gone off the antidepressants. And then I moved out to California too, not long after. And I felt like I just had more tools at my fingertips there when it came to emotional and spiritual growth, especially in a holistic manner. So it was from there that I was able to learn and, understand how I could, like, the lifestyle changes I could make to support my mental health, as what, if I didn't want to stay on the medication, or if I felt like I didn't need it at that moment, then what lifestyle changes could I make to continue to support myself?
For people that aren't very familiar with cognitive behavior therapy, can you share a little bit about what your understanding of it is and how it's helped you understand your thoughts better and change the irrational thoughts and beliefs that often accompany depression?
Absolutely. So yeah, so I really only know what I've experienced, and then also a very tiny bit that I've learned in a positive psychology program that I'm a part of. But for me, the biggest tool was this, what we were taught, at least, is like the ABC of cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's breaking down your thoughts. So for example, the A would be an activating event or an adversity. So maybe it's your friend said that she would call, and she didn't call, and that's the activating event. That it's a trigger, right? We hear that word a lot, but that's what it would be. Then the B, oftentimes we go from A to C because we're not necessarily aware of what the belief or the B is behind what's making us react. If the activating event is my friend didn't call, then the consequence might be a feeling or a behavior. So either I feel really sad, I feel abandoned, I feel rejected, I feel angry. It could also be a behavior like, okay, well, now that I'm feeling these things, now I'm going to lash out, or I'm going to ignore her. I'm going to feel like I just don't, I know I'm going to close up. It could also, for me, sometimes just spiral into more thoughts, right? But when we slow it down, we can then address the B. So if we look at the activating event, And then we look at the belief behind it. So if we're like, okay, my friend didn't call, but what thought did I feel right before, or what thought did I think right before I felt something? That's when we have like our aha moments, and we can like really get clear on our mind chatter and what beliefs, these stories we're creating to make us feel a certain way. So maybe if I'm feeling abandoned, my belief is my friend didn't call me, and that's because she genuinely just doesn't want to talk to me. She doesn't care. Well, then I might have to be like, uh, what they some now going into like the D and E, like you might dispute that. So now you can be like, well, why would I think she doesn't care? Like she just told me 2 days ago that she loves me. She's always been there for me when I need her. And we have a really strong relationship. So then you can kind of, like you said, like these somewhat irrational stories that we have, we can start to break them down and be like, oh, okay, if I can choose a different thought now, realizing that one isn't actually true. I challenged it and it's not true. Now I can be like, well, my friend didn't call me, but I bet she's busy. And now that is going to lead to a different consequence, a different feeling. Now I might have compassion for her. Now I might feel like, oh, I hope she's okay. And then that might lead to a behavior of, I'm going to give her a call. I'm going to be vulnerable and I feel okay doing that because I want to make sure she's okay. Or it's like, I'm just going to give her space and I'm going to be okay doing that. But it's kind of mind blowing when you can break it down. You can see the two avenues that you can go, or many avenues you can go into, all because of one story, that we so oftentimes, I know we're subconscious to them.
Yes, we're often just mostly controlled by our subconscious urges and thoughts and beliefs, and we're not even aware of it. And I loved how you broke that down because it is the irrational thoughts and beliefs that lead to the actions, and we personify, or not personify, but we personalize other people's behaviors and make it about ourselves. But like you said, she could be busy. She could have other things going on. It's not all about me. So I love that you broke that
Yeah.
down. You also are into processing your emotions. Can you talk a little bit about processing those emotions, and then what are the benefits, and what are the steps that you go through to do that?
One of the things that I think I kind of grew up feeling shame for was like how much I feel. So I've always been a very big feeling person. And, at some point in my life, usually when I was younger, like I kind of got this message from different, from family, from society, that wasn't a desire, that wasn't desired. It was really desired to like have control over your emotions, complete control, to appear a certain way. And I am the person that, I have my heart out on my sleeve. You can look in my eyes and immediately know what I'm feeling. And so that was always a challenge. And I always felt kind of ashamed. But at the same time, I loved these emotions because they made me who I was. And not only that, but they taught me a lot. They taught me a lot about myself. They taught me about what I need and who I am, and how to honor that. So to deny them, even the really challenging, or, what some people would deem negative emotions, I saw how important they were. And I also saw how detrimental it was when we weren't embracing them as a whole, when we were kind of cherry picking our emotions and naming some good and some bad. That's really where the process I take people through in my writing workshops and everything came through with personifying emotions. And I think for me, the beyond just having a creative outlet to journal and, again, kind of distance yourself enough to get some clarity about who you are and what you're feeling and why you're feeling them, receive those messages. I also think it helps build emotional intelligence, which is, this capacity to notice, name, and navigate your emotions. It's kind of what you were saying before. We can notice them through a multitude of ways, but then a big part of it is naming them, and that's really hard for a lot of people. And then from there, we can learn how to navigate them. So even when we do feel an emotion that's overwhelming or really hard, we feel like even if we're struggling through it, which I absolutely have those moments. I mean, on a daily basis, even, we at least have the empowerment behind it that we can do it. And studies have shown that, this idea of emotional intelligence, of being able to notice, name, and navigate, is correlated to resilience. So again, this isn't about doing it perfectly at all. That doesn't exist. It's just about doing it. It's just about showing up and allowing the process to happen. So my process of personifying is taking people through, say, the emotion judgment. We just did a workshop on that. And at first, I take them through 4 stages. So we greet the emotion, we sit with the emotion, we converse with the emotion, and then we give our gratitude and say goodbye, which is a very important part too. And through each of those steps, we have journal prompts, conversations, things that really help us to reflect on what it means to name an emotion or greet it, and then to sit with it, which is so hard at times. And then the conversing part is where a person would be able to personify their own emotion. And by personify, I mean literally make it into a person. So the reason I really like this is because it's helping us tune into our bodies and what an emotion feels like in our body. So if I'm feeling judgment, I can kind of close my eyes and maybe think back on sometimes I've either felt judged or I've judged someone else, and just feel like, where am I feeling that in my body? Is it in my chest? Is it in my hands? If I get creative, like, what do I think, judgment would smell like? What would their home smell like? What colors would be there? And then from there, we really just go into this fantasy, imagination filled world where we're going up to the door of judgment and we're going into their home and we're conversing with them. We have dialogue, we're learning things about them, we're learning things about ourselves. And then at the end, we leave, because that's, like I said, a very important part when processing emotions is knowing, when the time is to let go and move through and not ruminate. So, yeah, so that's the process that I've kind of created for myself, and then the process that I take other people through.
It reminds me a lot of that movie Inside Out, the
Yes.
Disney Pixar
Yep.
movie.
Yeah. I
So when
love
we
that movie.
know, yes, they have their own personalities, they have their own,
Yeah.
but I also am a big fan of you have to feel it to heal it. And a lot of people avoid the feeling thinking it's just going to go away. I mean, I've had patients that finally at the age of 82, they decide I'm going to deal with a trauma that happened when I was 20, hoping that it would go away if they ignored it. And then they realize it's not going anywhere. In fact, I'm having nightmares again and I'm reliving it as if it
Right.
happened again. So feeling it and sitting with it and holding space for that is so important. And I like the description you gave as far as making them be a person so that you can separate them from yourself and really understand where it's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, that distance helps to maybe have some compassion too, even for the emotion itself. So again, when we're talking about, say, our friend, and we're like, okay, we give them the benefit of the doubt, being like, all right, she's busy. I even find if I'm struggling with anger, I mean, like rage, right? Sometimes if I can take a step back, I can be like, oh, there's grief underneath this, or there's disempowerment, or there's, just a lot of sadness. And then from there, I can understand. So I might as well if this emotion were a person, I would be able to see that this person is actually in pain, and I would be able to have compassion for them, even if I was still angry, right? Like it doesn't mean because we have one emotion, the other one can't exist, but at least there's a little bit more compassion with when you're able to distance yourself a little bit.
Well, anger oftentimes is a great mask for the deep sadness that we have, but it's a lot easier. Society has made it easier for us to express anger than it has for sadness. So that
Yeah.
is our go-to. Immediately we go towards anger. We feel empowered with having anger when really it's making us feel weaker.
Hmm.
And just showing our emotions and acknowledging that, yeah, that's sadness. That's actually a sign of strength. But that's not how we're brought up. That's not how we're taught. So how you mentioned something about writing workshops. How has writing helped you deal with your emotions and process them and helped you just maintain your emotional stability?
Writing is such an amazing tool, and I've been a writer since I was a little girl. This is actually how I used to process. I often think back to when I was 7. My dad got really sick, and he was almost close to dying rather suddenly. And he didn't. He pulled through. He's great, thank God. But when he came home from the hospital, there wasn't like a whole lot of conversation about it, just because there wasn't. I mean, I don't know that I like kind of let on. I don't even know that I realized it was 7. I don't know if I realized I needed it, or there just wasn't a whole lot of conversation, and he was healing really well, and that was kind of it. But then it was only a few years ago my parents started their moving process. They sold our family home, and they were digging up old stories that I had written for school. And in almost every single story I had written, it begins with the father having died. So it begins with this little, like this girl who's going, on this adventure, but she's lost a father or a mother, but most times it was a father. And it was one of those moments where it kind of hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I was probably 9 or 10 when I wrote this. Like, that was my way of processing that fear of losing him. Because in the story, the girl always found a way through. She was always okay. She was sad and she always cried in the story. But she found her way at the end in feeling like she could move through her life without her father or mother. It's just this really, what I found, powerful way, again, without even realizing it at times, to almost, like, in that sense, like, play out a different scenario. So, like, I think that when I was young, I was like, I don't know how I would survive losing a parent. But in my stories, my mind was able to tell myself not only that I would, but how I would. And even if I didn't remember it the minute I handed in that paper and moved on with my life, somewhere there was a healing that was occurring that made me feel like I not necessarily had control, right? Because that was really what I was processing, was this sudden loss of control, of certainty, but that no matter what, I would be okay and I would find a way to be okay. So I think for me, writing and journaling does that. It's this way of, whether it's in the sense of a creative writing exercise or whether it's journaling, for journaling, it's a lot of getting your thoughts out. Like I said, kind of getting to see them on paper, like thoughts. Sometimes I just dump my thoughts out and I can see, like, wow, this is a really harmful thought to think about myself. Like, I don't think I want to keep that one. I don't believe it. And it's not nice. So I'm going to rewrite that. So even just the process of being, having a sentence that says, like, you are not lovable, being able to rewrite that and be like, you are so loved, not only by your friends and family, but by yourself. Just seeing the shift in a story is enough for your brain to start creating new neural pathways to believing it. I just think there is something about writing physically, seeing it outside of you, that again, not only gives you a little bit of distance, but clarity in how to organize and kind of walk through this mind chatter that's always going.
So I got to ask you, are you a pen to paper type of writer or are you a computer writer?
So it's funny, when I journal, I'm a pen to paper, but when I am doing creative writing, I'm computer.
Yes, me too, because I do so much on my computer that when I'm journaling, I don't feel connected at that emotional level when I'm on the computer. So I have to do pen to paper. But what an amazing story. At 9 and 10, you figured out a way to help yourself make sense of the world and process those emotions and feel empowered enough to understand that you can change the way you're thinking. You can change your beliefs. You can correct thoughts that no longer served you. I'm sure you didn't do all of that at 9, but just the fact that you're learning to do that now is pretty amazing. It's pretty powerful that you're able to do that. Speaking of being 9, if you could go back, knowing what you know now, if you could go back to 9, 10, or even your teen years, what would you tell yourself at that time?
That question just gave me chills. I think I would go back to being pretty young, and I think I would just, I mean, whenever I've ever done like any inner child or anything like that exercises, first of all, I'm always physically holding myself. Like, I wish I could just hug myself at that age. And I think I would just tell myself, like, you are enough as you are. You don't have to change. In fact, please don't, because you are needed how you are, and you are not going to be like others, and others aren't going to understand you always. And you might even trigger others, but that doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. We all have our wounds, and we all have our triggers, but kind of what you were saying before, exactly what you're saying before, it's not actually personal. We are just walking mirrors for everyone we come in contact with. And yeah, I wish that I could tell myself, like, don't take it personally, and don't let it steal from you. Don't let it change what you think about yourself. Just keep being who you are, keep loving with your entire heart, because also, although we all have triggers, we also, all we want is to be loved, and you do that really well. So don't stop doing that.
And you're right. The world needs us to be our unique individual selves. We don't want to be carbon copies of other people because, like they say, those other people are already taken, right? We have to be our own
Yes,
self.
that's actually my favorite Oscar Wilde quote is everybody else is already taken. Yeah, I love that quote.
And we can't be and who knows, we don't even know what contributions we're making because of our unique gifts and talents and our quirks and our just different way of seeing the world. And we don't know yet when we're 10 or even 15 or even 20 what that's going to look like and how that's going to contribute to changing the world in some way. So hold on to being unique, hold on to being yourself, and just know that it's all going to work itself out as you get older.
Yes. Right. I mean, I think even I'm 31 and I still don't understand the impact. Like, it's like when you're in it, rarely do you until you're out of it. And then you look back and you're like, okay, I see now. Yeah, right. Nothing is linear.
Well, according to Oprah, you don't even start living your life really. I mean, as far as making the major contributions and figuring out yourself until you're in your 40s. So you still have some time to practice
That's
and figure
awesome.
it all out.
I love it.
So where can people find you if they want to reach you, or if you're on social media, how can people follow you?
Yeah. So for Mooncycle, you can follow us on Instagram is our best way of finding us, but at Mooncycle Bakery. And we talk mainly there about nutrition and how to support yourself hormonally, but also we talk a lot about this. Like I said, I think that one of my biggest passions is just talking about the human experience in its entirety. So you'll definitely find some of that conversation there, but you'll find more of it on my Instagram, which is underscore Devon Loftus. And I'll be sharing a lot more writing there. I actually have a really exciting announcement that I will make when I am able to. But, this is kind of the beginning of the workshops and of writing really supporting how we navigate, name, and notice our emotions. So, yeah, you can find us on Instagram at Mooncycle Bakery or underscore Devon Loftus.
And also, I just want to say congratulations on your upcoming book. That's so
Thank
exciting.
you. Thank you. Yeah.
This was such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you joining me and sharing your story and how you've navigated the journey of depression and managing your emotions and personifying it and expressing those emotions. So thank you so much for being here and sharing that story with us.
Thank you so much for having me and making the space to talk about this.
Devon's story is so inspirational. Devon shared that cognitive behavior therapy provided her with the tools she needed to work with her depression and understand it better. If you're like Devon and wear your heart and emotions on your sleeve, you're not alone, and in fact, you're in pretty good company. If you want to learn more about Devon, please visit transforminganxiety.com/14. If you want to start processing your emotions and need a journal to do so, download the free PDF journal planner I created just for this episode. Go to transforminganxiety.com/14 to download your free planner. When you're there, make sure to go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts about this episode. Also, please show your support for the Mental Health Break podcast by subscribing wherever you're tuning in from today, and go ahead and take a picture of this podcast episode on your phone screen and share it on social media, and be sure to tag me. If you're enjoying the Mental Health Break podcast, please be sure to give us a 5-star review on Apple Music, since that'll make it easier for other people to find the podcast. I can't wait to see you here next week, same time, same place. Bye for now.